Hi, I want to evolve the conversation a little bit surrounding digital these days and the pivot to digital, which has been largely a lot of the advice that's been given out. I think there's a lot of advice out there that needs to be considered a little bit further. So it's kind of like when somebody tells you to eat right and exercise to be healthy. We all know that. That's not news to anybody, but exactly what sort of things to do and how to do it, that's what's missing, I think, these days from a lot of advice that's out there in the digital space today. So I want to focus on something that I think is critical and I think is the first place to start when considering your digital footprint now. And I think where it should be evolved to. That's on the concept of audiences. There's two types of audiences, the way I see it. You have an owned audience, in which is the people that follow you or your brand that you have direct communication with. Maybe follow is not the right word. People that you are able to contact via email or phone numbers, that there's no other platform in the way between you and communicating with that customer or contact in that way. So a true direct to consumer ability. The second type of audiences is distributed. These are your social media audiences. These are platforms where your brand may be active and fairly successful. In the last 10 years, the real push has been to grow social populations to have, and I've had many experiences where we want our Instagram to be over 10,000 followers. And the first question I like to ask is, all right, cool. So let's say we get there tomorrow, then what? Because you're building a rented audience on an Instagram platform. Uh, these things can change and these things can go away. And I think we've all been experiencing for the last 5 weeks what it's like when something goes away. We saw non-essential retail basically go away almost overnight. So before, when I would caution people about be careful about putting too much investment in social, be careful about worrying too much about social populations. You should be focusing a lot more on owned audiences and ones where you do control the communication. um, that was easier to dismiss. But when you see something as profound a change as what we've gone through, I think it's certainly possible to recognize that a lot of these things can change very quickly, almost overnight in this case. So those are your two types of audiences, owned and distributed. Is it wrong to still build a social following? No, of course not. But you have to recognize that what you are building is an audience for Mark Zuckerberg, right? You're building an Instagram audience or a Facebook audience, and pick your social platform. And it doesn't really matter, Twitter audience. Same sort of thing. What should also be a priority is also building your own audience. That's always been true for the last 10 years, but I think much more so than now, as we transition and as we progress through this, owning your digital space, the space around your website or whatever digital assets you have, is critical and very important. It always was, but now even more so. And I think that when you apply all these changes about what's been happening and start to look at what should we do, it's about being able to obtain that contact information, to grow those audiences. In a lot of cases, you may be able to consider a subscription type model. You look at the most successful spaces today, how they're functioning is more on a subscription based business model in that way. So that's the first place I would suggest that most people look to start. Social still important, yes, without a doubt. But start focusing on those owned audiences and start focusing on how to control more of your immediate digital space.